Welcome to Life Mastered, the podcast, where high achievers and ambitious souls come for the kind of support that fuels both inner growth and outer strength. This is your space for real tools and deep truths, for meeting life's greatest challenges with grace, resilience, and self-connection, and also expanding into your next level of purpose. I'm Molly Claire, your host, master coach, mentor, and guide, because life mastery is not about checking boxes. It's about how you meet yourself in every moment along the way. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode. I cannot believe that it is 2026 already. I am so thrilled for all that is to come in the year ahead in the Life Mastered podcast. I have some incredible guests that I will be bringing to you, some incredible stories that I will be sharing, and some incredible concepts and tools that can help you with your own journey of self-mastery. So it's going to be a great year, and I'm so thrilled that you are here with me. Today, you are going to hear an interview that I recorded with David Dye. David helps human-centered leaders with practical tools for having good conversations, for conflict resolution. I will tell you that my conversation with David stands out to me as one of my favorite, in particular because you can hear and feel in every bit of this conversation just how passionate he is about helping people to have better understanding of one another. And one of the things that I asked David on this interview is, how did you first know that this was kind of for you, that this was a space that you wanted to be in? And he talked about being a kid and realizing that even then he saw the value in people better understanding one another. So he's an incredible person, an incredible leader, and an incredible leader of leaders. So let's go ahead and dive into this conversation with David Dye. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Life Mastered. I am really excited for this conversation with David Dye. Welcome to the podcast, David.
Pleasure to be with you, Molly. Thanks for having me.
This conversation is so important, in my opinion, in so many ways, because as you're going to soon find out, we're talking about moving from conflict to collaboration. And, you know, the ways that we communicate or don't communicate in our professional life, in our personal life, is a big deal. And I think that the truth is that if we could work on better communication, it would change a lot of things and make life a lot easier. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. But David, please tell my audience a little bit about you, what you do, why you do it.
All right. Well, so I'm the president of a global leadership consultancy. Our name is Let's Grow Leaders, and we focus on human-centered leadership skills, very practical tools and skills and strategies for human-centered leaders. And what I mean by that are people who want to achieve those results, when we talk about results, there's nonprofit results, government results, and of course, for-profit results, but doing it in a way where people grow and thrive. And so we're trying to create those results-oriented, human-centered cultures. And so that's what we do as our main work. So in that vein, I've written a number of books. The most recent of them we're talking about today, Powerful Phrases for Dealing with Workplace Conflict. And so that's the work that we do.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And the question that came up for me is, I'd love to understand on a personal note from you, what is it that's really drawn you to this, human-centered leadership and really the passion for the work that you do specifically?
Oh, I love that question, Molly. Origin story. Go all the way back to, and this is not a joke or an exaggeration. When I was 11 years old, I remember scrawling on a notepad, and I had it on my dresser that I just left it there for a while. This question of how do people best work together? And I don't know what 11, 12-year-olds asking that question, but it was a question that occurred to me and has stuck with me for many, many years. And so early in my career, when I was an individual contributor and then leading a team of 3 people, I didn't have a lot of leadership development, like very, very little. Nobody was teaching me any of this. I was in human service nonprofit organization at the time. So I went to the library. I'd check out a shelf at a time and read anything I could.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, as I educated myself, people started asking me questions as I got hopefully better at what I was doing. And then
Mm-hmm.
um, I would start sharing answers, and I'd share, well, there's this book here, and you can read this. And finally, one guy says, David, if you give me another book, just tell me the answer.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, okay, John, I can do that for you." And from there, I started doing a lot more intentional leadership development inside the organization. And then as we
Mm-hmm.
expanded around the country, and I really just have a passion and a compassion for leaders, for managers, because it's such a vital, important role.
Mm-hmm.
So many of the, if you're doing a university style course on this, you don't learn any of the how do
Yeah.
you actually do the human side of this job.
Mm-hmm.
And so to do that well and in a really practical way it's been a motivator for me for
Yeah.
decades. It really has.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where my motivation comes from. My school of hard knocks, like I learned the hard way, made all the
Yeah.
mistakes, things I wished I would have known earlier. So let me give those to somebody before,
Yeah. Yeah.
before they have to do that.
Well, I love this, and what I want to highlight about this that just stands out to me so much is what you do, what you clearly have a gift for what you do. I've had, I haven't known you a long time, but I've had enough conversation with you to know and feel and sense that you really are gifted in this work that you do and that you really care about it. And, when you talk about that story of you being 11, it reminds me of things I've looked back on and have seen that what I do now always existed in me. And so I want to highlight this because, as my listeners are here, all of you are here because you you know that you really want to exemplify the best traits within you, your best qualities. And I truly believe that when we pay attention to what we feel and what is in us and what we feel called to and lean into it, I think we can really have the biggest impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's where
Yeah.
it's going to come from for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I love this. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about I know you have a book, Powerful Phrases, where you're really focusing on moving from conflict to collaboration. Let's talk about this. Tell us more about this book.
Well, the first thing I want to say on this is that because people hear the word conflict and immediately there's that, like, ooh, and it's honestly, it's why the publisher has the word conflict in big letters on the top of the book, right? Is
Yeah.
we love HarperCollins. They've done a great job with this book for so shout out to our publisher. But um, the the idea of conflict immediately makes some people go, oh, and we cringe. The
Mm-hmm.
reality is, when we're thinking that way, what we're thinking about is destructive conflict. It's the kind that's unhealthy. No one needs any more than that, of that.
Mm-hmm.
What
Mm-hmm.
we need is constructive conflict. We
Mm-hmm.
need productive disagreements, productive times where we're looking at the same problem and bringing all of our different expertise, opinion, perspective, and experience to the table. Well, another word for productive conflict is collaboration. And so when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about moving from conflict to collaboration, what we're moving away from is destructive conflict where we don't know what to do in those situations. And two, productive collaboration. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why we wrote the book, was to equip people, really practically speaking, how do you do that? Whether you're an
Mm-hmm.
individual contributor team member, whether you're the CEO of the company, they're the same skills.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I love that you brought this up around the word conflict. So many times, when I'm working with my clients and talking through, their interpersonal relationships, that communication, so many people see conflict or a difference of opinion as a really scary thing, something we don't want to deal with. When really, and I'm obviously you subscribe to this as well, and the way you were talking about it, it's kind of like when we can go to a place where we can meet where the mismatch is, where the misalignment is, where the misunderstanding is, and we can look at it with eyes of being on the same team. That really is where there's so much opportunity, right? And I know that your book is more focused on the workplace, and I want to talk about that and also get your take on the personal space. But I immediately just think in our personal lives and especially in these close relationships, what a gift to be able to address these things that could otherwise bring division and actually bring so much more connection, which is what we all want,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And connections actually, when we talk about how to do this and whether it's personal or professional, we in the work. So I should mention the book is based on research that we did for survey 5,000 plus over 5,000 people, 46 different countries, all 50 United States. So really extensive. And there are four dimensions that we talk about that go into this movement towards productive relationships and collaboration. And you just mentioned the first one, it's connection. Do we
Mm-hmm.
really know each other as human beings? The
Mm-hmm.
second one is clarity. Are we working from a shared script? Do we have a shared
Mm-hmm.
understanding of success, what success does, how we achieve it, all those things? And so often the answer is no, and it's one of the biggest challenges we face as human beings. The
Mm-hmm.
third dimension is curiosity. And so are we
Mm-hmm.
genuinely seeking out, open to one another's perspectives, what's possible? And then the fourth dimension is commitment. And this isn't an act of willpower. This is, do we have a clear shared agreement and are we following through? And follow through either looks like celebration and high fives or accountability like, hey, we didn't do what we said we were going to. What do we learn from that? How can we do it next time? Do we renew now? Those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. Those four pieces. And the thing that came to mind for me is that tell me what you think about this. I think a big reason why well, there are many reasons why conflict can feel scary for sure. Now I'm like having all of these, thoughts come to me about the many different layers that come up for my clients. But one thing in particular is we can often be afraid that we're going to lose out or that we're not going to be heard, that our perspective won't matter. And, as you're talking about these four pieces, I'm thinking about how valuable it is for there to be a process where I get to bring myself to the table, right? And they get to bring themselves to the table. And it
Yes.
truly feels like I have a voice here, which I think is a really big deal in terms of helping people to lower their defenses and participate.
Yeah. And part of this is, and so just to validate what you said, that's my biggest concern. Like whenever I'm in a conflict is like, am I going to be heard?
Right,
Am I going to
right,
get my perspective out here? And
right.
that concern that I'm not. Now, with skill, we can do it. If we take, and the cool part is it only takes one person to take responsibility for the
Mm-hmm.
conversation. And so we call the book Powerful Phrases because we have really specific phrases that you can use. And for, in a short form conversation like this, there are 12 of them that we call the GOATs, greatest of all time, powerful
Mm-hmm.
phrases. And so specific phrases we can use to do exactly what you just said. And
Mm-hmm.
for a listener, as you're hearing a couple of these, they might sound counterintuitive. Like, well, now wait a minute. You're asking the other person their perspective. Where are you getting yours in? But by taking responsibility for the conversation and inviting theirs in intentionally, I am then giving myself the opportunity to share as well. So just to give you two examples, a connection phrase, very simple, three words. Tell me more. Talking with
Mm-hmm.
somebody, they're a little fired up. There's something going on. There's like, tell me more. And in doing that, I am multi-level. One, I'm communicating, I care about what they have to say. Two,
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting more information into the conversation so that I can know where they're coming from, and so
Mm-hmm.
on. Another one, a curiosity phrase. I used this one, I committed to this for 2024 was my year of this phrase. Just one phrase, I'm going to try to use this as often as I can to show up with more curiosity. How does this look from your perspective?
Mm-hmm.
And again, such a powerful way to take responsibility for the conversation. I'm getting their perspective. I'm learning something I didn't know. And what I'm doing is giving myself the ability to craft a better solution because now I know what they need out of this situation or what their viewpoint is. But here's the thing for going back to our original concern, am I going to get mine in there? Now I
Mm-hmm.
can. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So what I hear you saying is this, which is another phrase, check for understanding. What I hear you saying is this. Do I have that right? Yeah, yeah. Okay. And thank you for that. And here's how I see it. Here's how it's looking for me. And now I've got my perspective in there as well. So let's now move
Mm-hmm.
to solutions and start talking about how do you think we can address this in a way that could work for both of us?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, just all of the languages, of course, the collaboration is the word used, but it is this collaborative language. And one of the things that comes immediately to my mind with both of those connection questions, from a nervous system perspective, from a, am I going into protective mode perspective, that just by asking someone to share how they feel, and when they're able to name their feelings, give their perspective, it immediately lowers their defenses. It immediately brings them down to a place where there can be more openness.
Yeah, it does that for them. And the cool part is we can do it for ourselves too, which is one of the reasons that I love that. How does this look from your perspective question? Because when I'm fired up and I'm like, "Arr," and my amygdala hindbrain's going off, if I can just force the words out of my mouth, it automatically draws me into that front cortex. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's a curiosity. It's a different part of my brain. And so it
Mm-hmm.
lessens the grip, it lessens the intensity of those emotions that I'm experiencing, opens the door. And so we can do that both ways. And now both
Yeah,
of us have come down a notch and we're
right.
opening the door to something more productive.
Right, right. And, you said this as well, but I want to highlight this again also as we're gathering information and understanding the other person's perspective, we can more clearly articulate as well how we're seeing things now that we have the bigger context or that perspective there as well, right? So that as we're explaining our perspective, we're at least understanding where they're coming from. Otherwise, we can completely miss. It's that whole thing of, right, listen first to understand. Because if we're not understanding, then we're both just waiting for our turn to say something and we go right past each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. This idea of understanding is I if I had to choose one leadership skill or one communication skill, when we say leadership, I don't just mean positional leadership. One communication skill, it would be what I call checking for understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I
Mm-hmm.
hear you saying. Do I have that right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the flip
Mm-hmm.
side, what is your understanding of what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And if we can invest in that, uh, I mean, it saves so much headache, heartache, frustration, wasted time, hour. I mean, there's just so much good it will do to I always say if people only listen to one episode of my podcast, Leadership Without
Mm-hmm.
Losing Your Soul, episode 275, that's all I talk about in that episode is this
Mm-hmm.
notion of how do we do mutual understanding? It's so
Mm-hmm.
critical.
And I think also, I mean, this is what came to my mind because, for a living, I listen to my clients, their thoughts, their perspectives, right? And especially when I'm training my coaches and I'm helping them to learn how to effectively work with their clients and their thoughts and everything, it's very easy for us to think that we know what a client needs or we know like we hear something, right, and we can kind of check the file in our brain like, oh, I know what advice they need, I've heard this story before, and yet we're just wrong. So what I always say is, like, when I ask my clients a question, when I'm coaching a client and I'm asking them a question, I never know what the answer is. I never actually know what's going on for any one individual person. Even if I have worked with 500 people on the same topic or thing happening, every individual is going to be different. And so and I don't think we realize how many assumptions that we make. And of course we do, right? Of course, because we're all just trying to make sense of the world with our own framework. But truly, the more questions we can ask and understand that the person in front of you is going to have their own nuanced view and their own frame of the world. And can you really understand it with that deep curiosity? It's everything.
Yeah, it really is. And, for me, it's that awareness of I cannot possibly know what they're thinking or what their perspective is. It's
No,
impossible because they're a different person.
that's
And
right.
even when I ask, I'm still going to have a limited understanding, but I'm sure going to have a lot more to work with.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. And having a teenage daughter, all the conversations I always, think that I'm so grateful that I have the ability to understand myself and my emotions and regulate and know all of these things because it's a super skill that comes in very handy
I'm uh,
regularly.
I'm laughing because our youngest just turned 20, so we no longer have any teenagers.
Yeah.
Just this week, but just a couple months ago, of course, he's familiar with our work and the book and everything, and And we were giving him a hard time in a situation where, we thought, well, why don't you do this? And it seems to make all the sense in the world. And he says, okay, hey, parents, how does this look from my perspective? You want to get curious? And we were like, oh, why, yes, we do, Sebastian. Go ahead and, well, thank you for reminding us of our own perspective
Yeah.
here. And how does it look from your perspective? And he had a really good, well thought out, well reasoned approach to what he was doing, of course.
Yeah.
And that's if we just would have asked.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to talk more about some of the specific phrases. So I know the last two that or the two that you offered were connection phrases. So are there phrases within each of these four categories?
Yeah.
Okay.
So tell me more is a connection phrase. Hey, I really care about you, or I really care about this team, this project, this whatever we're doing, and I'm confident we can come up with a solution here. Another connection one is reflect to connect. And so this is acknowledging what we're hearing, checking in. So
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like you're really frustrated, or it sounds like you're feeling unheard, or it sounds like you're feeling mistreated here. It sounds like you're
Mm-hmm.
really excited about this opportunity. Whatever emotion we're picking up, reflect it back and then check in. It
Yes.
sounds like you're feeling really blank. Is that right? Am I picking that up
Mm-hmm.
correctly? We never
Mm-hmm.
want to tell somebody how they're feeling. Molly, you're feeling angry. I know, because that's just obnoxious. I can't know how you're feeling, but I can know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm perceiving and then check and then see. And it does what you were saying earlier. It lowers the intensity of that because now the person's been seen, opens the
Mm-hmm.
door to continue conversation. So those are connection
Mm-hmm.
phrases. Clarity. We haven't talked a ton about clarity, but I did mention checking for understanding, which is, hey, here's what I hear you saying. Do I have that right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the other super, super powerful clarity phrases is, what would a successful outcome do for you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So often we get locked in these arguments and conflicts based on whatever somebody's saying or asking for, but it's not what they actually need.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do we get underneath that? And that's what this question does. What would a successful outcome do for you? So, you've got an employee, a team member, who is, signing up to work with you, and they're really gung ho about this project. And do you know what they need out of this work? Do you know what they need out of this engagement? It may be very different from whatever your assumption might be. So that's a great way to ask and learn. And then you can put yours in too. Go
Mm-hmm.
ahead. So what I hear you saying is that what successful outcome would do for you is that it gets you home for your family on the weekends because you have not had that for the last 6 months and you really need that. Here's what
Mm-hmm.
I need out of this project. What I'm really
Mm-hmm.
needing, what a successful outcome would do for me is it gives our CEO a chance to see my genius. So if I could answer some of the tough questions when we do our presentation, well, now we both know what a successful outcome
That's
does,
right.
right? So that's a clarity question that's incredibly powerful.
And especially, I mean, as you were saying it, that's a question we need to ask ourselves first anyway, because do we even know, right? Do
Right,
we know what
right.
success looks like? So,
So often we assume for ourselves.
yeah, yeah. So, what a great question to ask for ourselves. And then to get that clarity of the other person. And then it becomes so collaborative in the sense that you're kind of setting it up to both look out for one another, right? And be on advocate for yourself and what you want and be on the same team as the other person.
Absolutely. And when you find that they are really disparate and they're really wide apart, then you can have the follow-up conversation there. It's like, so how do you think we can address this? How can we find a way? I know it would be great, like, if you're talking to somebody who's like, what I need this resolved instantly. And you're like, well, what I need is I need this resolved 100% accurately.
Right.
And so, okay, well, let's talk about how can we get a good measure of both. It's not going to be all of one or the other. So let's figure out what could that look like for us.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't start with the acknowledgement of what those needs are, we're really in a bind. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the clarity questions. I, I mentioned what does this look like from your perspective? That's a great curiosity question. I'll go to commitment because this is where we so often drop the ball. We have a great conversation. We feel like we've done so good, and we never create an actual follow through. And 2 weeks later, we're back in the same situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To avoid that, two things. We want to get real specific. What's a specific next step we can both commit to on this thing, whatever we just
Mm-hmm.
agreed to? And then a second one, I call this schedule to finish, which is putting something on both of our calendars where we're going to spend at least 10 or 15 minutes talking to one another, either on the phone, in person, or virtually,
Mhm.
about whatever commitment we made and
Mhm.
what we learned, how we did it go the way we hoped? If not, what can we do to solve for it? If it did, let's again celebrate, high five. And
Mhm.
that process increases our trust and accountability. It increases the likelihood we follow through because we're looking at our calendar going, oh, I'm going to be talking to Molly about this in 2 weeks. I better do it.
Right, right.
And then if we don't, we've got a built in chance to talk about it as opposed to
Mhm.
just letting it slide and our trust erodes.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that, right? It just helps us to stay accountable. It helps us to close the loop. It helps us to follow through. Yeah.
And the other thing it does is it forces us to look at, are we taking on too much? I
Mhm.
know when we're talking about resilience, right? How are we managing our commitments? And just saying yes to everything is not being a team player. That's
Yeah.
saying, oh, I'm dropping something. We just don't know what it's going to be. So,
It'll be a
you know,
surprise.
it'll be a surprise to all of us. So instead, let's have that conversation up front.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is fantastic, and I will of course have a link to the book in the show notes, and I in a minute will have you tell everyone where they can find you. But a couple other things I just want to ask you. I would love to know, for all of you listening here, these seem like good ideas, good concepts, but let's really talk about what's possible when people really embrace this, when they really lean in and they're creating this collaboration. What does that look like?
I want to give you two quick anecdotes along those lines. So the first one is when I didn't do this right. So early in my career, I was leading a team of three. CEO comes to me and says, "David, I need you to be involved in this marketing event. Need your whole team in here." And I was angry because once I learned what he was doing, I felt it lacked integrity. I didn't like the way he was promoting it. I didn't want to have my
Mm-hmm.
fingerprints on it. I hated it. I hated the whole idea. And of course, I didn't say anything. Why? Well, he's the CEO. What can I say? Who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And I stewed instead, anxiety, sleepless nights, 3 nights of just until finally on day 4, I didn't use any of these phrases. I just popped my cork. I don't like this. I don't want to be a part of this. This lacks integrity. And of course, I thought I was going to get fired. But that's not what happened. To his credit and to my education, CEO said, David, I really don't see it that way. I don't think it lacks integrity at all, but I don't want you violating your integrity. And then he asked me the question I should have thought about from the beginning. He says, we have to do this. We got to, there has to be this thing, but how can we do it in a way that works for you, keeps
Mm.
your integrity? Took me 10 seconds to
Wow.
think of an answer. Like 10 seconds later, I'm like, well, what if we did this? He's like, yeah, okay, no problem. Let's do it. I'm like, are you
Wow.
kidding me? How
Wow.
long did I waste? How much emotional energy did I waste? Why? Because I was having this imaginary conversation in my head where if
Mhm.
I had just had a real even imperfectly done, if I had just had a real conversation, what was possible on the other end? So
Mhm.
not the greatest example, but still learn from it.
Yeah,
Flip
and
side,
what a great leader, what a great example to his
for
credit, right? As a
absolutely to his
leader.
credit,
That's
100%. So
amazing.
glad that he had that conversation. I learned a ton.
Yeah.
So as after powerful phrases had come out, one of our clients was having a conversation. This is a mid-level leader, and he was having a conflict in his own head, as it turned out, about some different things going on at work. And we walked through some of these phrases and how to approach it with his leadership. I get a text from this guy the next day. His name, we'll call him Joe. I get a text from Joe the next day, and he says, all it says is, I'm going to get a tattoo. Okay. Tell me more, Joe. Tell me more. What's the tattoo going to say? He said, tattoo's going to say, just have the conversation. He said, I said, so it went well. He's like, I didn't get everything I wanted, but I got 90%. And I was heard there was no conflict at all. All of the stuff is just so much of it we carry up here. So what's possible when we open the door and actually have the conversation? Likely you're going to find out a lot more is possible than you thought. But let's
Mhm.
take the worst case scenario, because this is
Mhm.
what our imagined fears are always. The worst case scenario, I'm dealing with a psychopath. I'm dealing
Yeah.
with a crazy person. I'm dealing with somebody who's just really, they wake up in the morning trying to figure out how to torture people, right? That's, their worst imagination. Well,
Right.
let's say that it's true. Here's the thing. Before you had the conversation, you didn't know that.
Mhm.
You were imagining it. You're all the stuff in our brain that we spin around on. Once you have the conversation, If that is actually true, now you have concrete data that you can do something with. Now you can make some different decisions for yourself about that partner, about that business, about that romantic relation. It doesn't matter what it is we're talking about. Now we can make some different decisions, but we didn't have the data before. That's the power of having the conversation.
Yeah, yeah, I love both of those examples. And as you're talking, what's really coming to my mind and is that I think that I believe you said this a few minutes ago here. I know we had some conversation, before recording. So, but you know, that it really takes one person to shift a dynamic, one person to create a change. Now,
Yeah.
in a partnership, right, both people have to come to the table. I'm a huge believer in that. And I think that for everyone here listening, wherever it is that you see that there has been unresolved conflict or conflicts that seem to come up and create a divide and you're curious about this, I think there is a lot of power in getting this book, taking this advice in, right? And thinking, how can I really lean into taking ownership of giving this a try, trusting this process and being willing to have greater understanding of the other person? Because I think if we're willing to do that, only good can come from it. It may not be easy, it may reveal things we don't like, but only good can come of it the more we see.
100%. And
Yeah.
and on that note, big believer in that. And and while we can take responsibility for our part of the conversation and then invite people in and all have that and make
Mhm.
that work, if you're in a leadership type of situation or you're part of a team, we've also made it really easy for you to guide everyone in that team through this conversation. We actually have I don't know, 20, 30, 40 page PDF, completely free download. You can go to conflictphrases.com and and there's an entire download, walks you through all 12 of those GOAT phrases that we were just talking about, common
Mhm.
conflict cocktails that you might be experiencing. It gives you the words and the way to have those conversations together so that you really can show up in partnership on these things.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. That's so powerful. And we'll have all of this in the show notes, of course, so you can all, get your hands on it. And it's kind of like, because I think sometimes these situations can feel more difficult to us than they are because they seem so mysterious, as if there's no solution. And so that's what I love about this. There are plenty of solutions. And in fact, here are some examples so you can really see and understand you're not alone in what you're experiencing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, this has been fantastic. So tell my listeners, where can they find you? Where can they find the book? Just tell
All
them
right.
all,
Absolutely.
all
So
of it.
Um, Powerful Phrases for Dealing with Workplace Conflict is the name of the book, and it's available everywhere books are sold. It's you can also get it in audio version if you like listening to your books. There's a very popular version of this. It's narrated by myself and my wife, Karen Hurt. We wrote it together. So yes, working together and writing together and being married. You can imagine all the opportunity for us to practice all that we teach.
Yes.
Um, and so that's available everywhere. Also, the book is really goes through it. It's meant to be both a guide, a how to, but then also you can turn to the specific challenge you're having at work. So you got a micromanager boss, you got a passive aggressive, you got a gossip, a bully, any of those situations give you the specific words to use. You can find us at letsgrowleaders.com is our website. And again, that download that I mentioned that you can use to walk through with your team, all of these kinds of skills is conflictphrases.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much again for this
Oh, it's been my
conversation.
pleasure, Molly. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's been so fantastic. And, to all of you listening, just really take this to heart. Even if you just take one thing, what's one small phrase, one small way that you can open up really wanting to understand another perspective? I always say I have been in thousands and thousands of brains. I hear the thought patterns going on, I hear the perspectives, and I have yet to meet two people who are exactly alike. So we've got to learn more of that perspective. It truly is the key to cooperation, to growth, connection, and all the things we really want. So, such a great episode. Thanks again, David, and I'll talk with you all next week. Thanks for being here and for investing this time in you. Keep showing up. Keep meeting yourself with compassion. That's truly what life mastery is all about. If you loved this episode, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And I would be honored if you would take the time to leave me a review. This ensures that this important work will get in the hands of more people. And if you're ready to take this work deeper, join me at mollyclaire.com where you can find all of the ways we can work together. I'll talk with you next week.